Hello everyone. Today I'm going to introduce a novel full of conflicts. In this novel, the female protagonist Avery is kissed unreasonably by the male protagonist Roman. At that time, Avery just wanted to discuss something serious with Roman. What's more, Roman has a deceased partner, yet he seems interested in Avery. What's going on here? Part 9. Roman eyes both women carefully. Avery looks slightly amused, keeping her gaze fixed on the woman, looking straight through Roman. Amelia is seething, snarls leaving her mouth. Roman sighs, shaking his head at them both. Mother, being unfortunate isn't a terrible thing, he reprimands, before turning to Avery. You need to work on your temper. Avery knows she does, so she stays quiet, instead opting to take a seat, watching Amelia like one would watch a tiger. How dare you defend her? Amelia gasps, before storming out of the room in a huff. I'm very sorry about her, Roman states, before walking back to his desk. Since my father died, she has been prone to mood swings. Avery nods in understanding. I heard about his death. We called into 10 due to a rogue attack. My father always speaks of yours highly. With all of this being said, the two sit in silence for a moment. So, what's your favorite color? Pulling out a ring binder with various colored pages scattered throughout. I like gray. Avery shrugs, observing him frown a little, before leafing through his binder. 3rd floor. The gray room is yours for the week. Then, he nods, standing up. She does the same, quickly following him as he strides out of the office with his ridiculously long legs, pacing up the stairs, but to make it to the 3rd floor in very little time. Roman strolls down a corridor and makes a few turns, Avery behind him, trying to memorize the twist. Eventually, after so much walking that Avery starts questioning how big this house is, he throws open a door. The room is flooded with light from its floor-to-ceiling windows, with white wooden furniture complementing the soft gray walls. There are plenty of built-in wardrobes and drawers. Much to Avery's delight, it makes her feel a bit better about overpacking so much stuff. You'll have your bags sent up. The teenagers will bring them up in a few minutes. I believe they'll be interested in meeting you. I think they might think that you're a guy. Roman chuckles, and Avery gapes at him. You could have told them I'm female. She cries out, shaking her head at him. That would ruin my fun. There's nothing else to amuse me. So teenage boy is thinking that your Alpha Wilco TT might inspire some enthusiasm. I may as well be Alpha Wilco TT, she sniffs, turning her back on him, and running her hands along with the blanket on the bed. To her delight, it's soft and silky. They'll be going now. You know where the office is. They'll send somebody to get you in an hour. And then we can go over the schedule for while you're here. If that suits you. Roman continues, leaning against the door frame as he watches Avery in amusement. Yep, that suits me perfectly. She nods, eyeing the door attached to her room. Once Roman leaves, she flings open the door, finding a small bathroom. She says aloud, slightly disappointed with the glamour of the room. She was expecting more. Just perfectly happy with her accommodation, but she thought maybe a clawfoot tub or a waterfall shower would greet her. Whatever. Sonia whines. Can we explore outside now? Avery rolls her eyes. Ignoring her wolf, she begins exploring her room, finding a home for everything. The bathroom is fully stocked with anything anybody could ever need: razors, a small sewing kit, painkillers, and an unusual amount of tampons. Eyeing the 5 boxes curiously, Avery decides she doesn't have the energy to get an answer about them. A knock on the door makes her sigh, shaking her head as she walks over to open it. Before she can even lay a hand on the handle, the door flies open, revealing 5 excited young teenage boys. Avery towers over all but one of them, staring down at them in mild confusion. Also looking very confused. They said the deputy alpha of Rapid Rock was here. One of the boys gets out, with a big grin on his face. Where is he? Is he gonna train us? A second blurts, and one of the others has a look of realization on his face. As your friend here just realized, I'm the Deputy Alpha of Rapid Rock. Avery sighs, running a hand through her hair, having forgotten it's in a rat bun. Her hand gets stuck, but she plays it off by holding the hand there and reaching up to take the hair elastic out with the other, redoing the bun in total silence. She stares at the boys who are looking at her like she had a second head. Yes, she asks, seeing a look of curiosity on one of the pups' faces. Are you gonna train us? He repeats the question one of the others asked earlier, and Avery observes them warily. Not that I know of. Your alpha didn't mention that to me, so you'd have to ask him. She shrugs, leaning against her door frame as she kicks her bags backwards into the room. One of the boys' eyes flashes black, before returning to their original blue. He said you could if you want to. He beams, and Avery pauses. She wanted to train pups to be the best they could be, and she had the strength to beat Talfus. Most of them, actually, giving up a few hours of her week off to fight and practice wouldn't be a bad thing. She reasons. Show these babies what we're capable of. Sonia adds deviously. And then Avery knows. Okay. Tell him I'll do it. She decides, getting ready to walk back into her room, only to be stopped by the 5 boys quickly hurrying after her. When? One asks enthusiastically. She feels flattered. She isn't sure the boys know that she's an unfortunate, but nobody has been this enthusiastic about being trained by her in a while. Oh, I can start whenever, she says awkwardly, turning around to unpack the bag she knows she put training gear into. 10 minutes. Once a jest, looking like he won the lottery. Sure. Tell your friends if they want to join. She mumbles and hears the scatter of feet run out of her room and close the door. What the hell had she gotten herself into? Part 10. It was a minor miracle that she had a set of workout gear that matched. She had a lot of half sets with her, but none matched, bar the bubble pink set she had put on. Dousing herself in sunscreen, she eats some of the pretzels she got on their journey to here, rubbing her face to try wake herself up. Securing her bun with an extra hair tie, she laces her trainers on, and throws a sweatshirt over her sports bra. She isn't sure where these guys prefer to train, and if it's indoors, she'll probably be cold. Grabbing her phone, and securing it in the pocket of her leggings, she bounces out of her room, trying to figure out where the gym is. Sonia snarls at her, and Avery rolls her eyes, tapping into her sense of smell to find her way downstairs. She manages to catch Alpha Roman's scent, and decides to follow it. He was the one who brought her up through this maze, so he should let her out of it. Following the trail intensely, she sticks to one side of the wall, noting the immense number of photographs and pictures hanging up. Drawings by kids, family photographs, and many photos of the Lancaster family line the walls, making her raise a brow. It's like they're compensating for something with this big show of affection and unity. Avery grumbles to Sonia, and the wolf tends to agree. Avery keeps turning the corners, sticking to the bland scent as much as she could. Every wolf has some sort of scent signature. Everyone says she smells like fresh cookies, which is pretty particular. York smells like lavender to her, and her parents smell like cinnamon and cocoa. But she can't figure out what Roman's is, which puzzles her. It would be a lot easier if it were unique or even legible. She starts vaguely recognizing where she is, her body flooding with pride at her little victory. Her lace comes undone, and she scowls, bending down to tie it. Out of nowhere, footsteps are heard and then moans. Avery whips her head around, her lips pursed. What kind of pack house was soundproof? Shaking her head, she gets back up and freezes when she hears a very dramatic and loud, "Oh, Roman," trying not to laugh. She fails, bursting into giggles as she walks away with her hand over her mouth. The footsteps can be heard again, and a ruffled droman appears at one of the doors, looking frazzled and defensive. "Oh, it's you," he mutters. "The gym is in the basement." Avery is still giggling, and gives him a thumbs up, dissolving into peals of laughter. The shrill exclamation of pleasure was so dramatic she can't help but continue to laugh. Finding the stairs, she hops down them, still giggling to herself. Sonia is shaking her head and rolling her eyes, scolding Avery for being so childish, but it ignores her. Going down the numerous flights of stairs, Avery observes her surroundings, the pack house appearing as a bustling hub of activity, with people milling around everywhere. People stare at her curiously before going back to what they were doing. She realizes Shess admitting some of her dominance, and she reins it in quickly if Shess reigning teenagers. She wants them to think they can win so that she can't whisk their undoubtedly cocky attitudes. Jim, she quickly asks one lady, who points her to a door, which leads to stairs. Bouncing down the steps, she pulls open the first door at the bottom of the stairs, being greeted with steam and cries of "Get out!" Avery quickly steps out and tries the middle door, which leads her to a huge gym, complete with any sort of training equipment she could think of. She notes the presence of a cage on the left side of the room, and a ring on the right side, with the middle clear of any equipment. A rack of knives, blades, and instruments of torture sits in front of her, making her raise an eyebrow. She's shocked that this pack just leaves their weapons out like this. In her pack, everything is locked away until sanctioned or scheduled training. If teenagers are fighting, there always needs to be an adult present, for safety and protection reasons. Avery walks up to the rack, running her fingers along the tails of a whip in curiosity. She does this to a few more of the instruments, before hearing some hasty footsteps enter the room. She turns around to see about 50 teenagers sitting on the ground, staring at her in awe. The footsteps came from about 10 males who entered the room, all of whom look guilty for disturbing her trance and concentration. "Sorry," some of them mumble, and she shrugs, eyeing the one seated on the floor. "Hello, I'm Deputy Alpha Wilco TT from Rapid Rock. But you already know that if you're here," Avery announces, putting her shoulders back and placing her hands behind her back. "Today, we'll be doing some combat training. I think we'll start in the cage." She muses and sees a hand raise. "Sorry, Deputy Alpha Wilco TT, but Alpha Lancaster doesn't allow us to practice in the cage until we're 16. One girl whispers, looking particularly scared of Avery's reaction. "Well, I'll wit. Well, that's where Alpha Lancaster," she almost sneers his name, completely unimpressed with his training practices, "is wrong. We train our pups in the cage from 9 years of age, or as soon as they shift if that is before 9. Shocked awe descends on the crowd, with rapid whispers being exchanged by some children. "Whenever you're all ready, it'll be in the cage." She sighs, walking to the cage with ease. She opens the door and swings herself up into it, the door being almost 5 feet off the ground. "I want a challenger and a referee. Volunteer or I'll pick myself." She almost snarls, looking down at the scared faces below her. Pulling off her sweatshirt, she flings it out of the cage, stretching out her arms. The girl who informed her about the age restrictions of this pack's cage volunteers to be referee, and Avery nods in approval. She seems to be a quiet girl, but Avery knows that the shy wolves are usually the most observant, and make brilliant trackers. She'll be excellent at keeping score and observing. One final boy walks out of the changing rooms, with 6 younger boys hurrying in front of him. The last boy is in no rush, looking extremely unimpressed. He's fought Savory in the cage, and his eyes flash black, the light reflecting off them. This one is older than the others, and a wicked smile grows on his face as somebody mind links him the details. "I volunteer as a challenger." He smirks, and the others clear a path for him up to the cage, some looking hesitant and concerned. Avery observes him, and the cocky way in which he walks. "I accept," she responds, walking to the other side of the cage, watching as he gets closer to the cage and starts to swing himself into it. Cocky and stupid, just the type she likes to beat. Part 11. As the kid advances, her referee clambers up into her post, waving at Avery frantically to beckon her over. Avery walks over to the girl, leaning down so that she can speak with ease. "Hello, Deputy Alpha. Thank you for allowing me to take this position. His name is Marcus, HES 17, and he is training under the chief warrior to take his place soon. The girl whispers and then pauses, looking around as if trying to remember something.
And my name is Kate.
She adds after a moment in the same hushed tone, giving Avery a small, nervous smile. Thank you, Kate. Avery gives her a toothy grin before turning around and walking to her corner. Watching this Marcus boy, he looks devious, and Avery takes an instant dislike to him. He whips off his shirt and throws it out of the door of the cage as she did with her sweatshirt. No killing, no maiming, no weaponry attacks in this fight. Each round will last for minutes, and there will be 3 rounds, and whoever can't hit the other for more than 10 seconds in the majority of matches will win. Kate squeaks, looking extremely worried. As soon as the girl blows the whistle, Marcus throws himself at Avery, his claws descending from his nails. Avery kicks him off of her, grabbing him by the scruff of his neck and flinging him into the bars of the cage. No partial shifts, or full shifts. She shouts to the crowd, "This is a clean fight." Marcus quickly stops his partial shift, throwing his shoulders back in an attempt to get Avery off of him. She lets go, and steps back to her corner calmly, her eyes on him always. Marcus looks slightly unnerved before he runs at her, punching where her face would be. Where her face would be if she hadn't jumped onto the walls of the cage, climbing along them like a spider, her fingers gripping the bars and gaps. Marcus snarls and grabs Avery's leg, trying to pull her down. Avery drops, kicking him in the jaw, and landing on the ground calmly. The crowd rustles, all watching in confusion. Avery isn't attacking this boy, but she's famed for her sudden and vicious and merciless fights. Marcus lands a punch on her cheek, and Avery hisses. Not having seen that coming, she was too focused on his footwork, kicking his knee backwards. Her uppercut hits his nose with a lot of force as he falls to the ground. He scrambles to get back up, tackling her backwards to the ground. "Hello, darling." She winks, flipping them with ease, and pinning his arms to the ground with her hands, and kneeling on his hips. The boy tries to kick upwards with his legs, and he bucks, attempting to destabilize her. "I've ridden more men than you've ever made friends with. You cocky little prick." She snarls in a guttural tone, punching him in the nose. A whistle blows, and Avery gets off him, dusting herself off with a scowl. 1 point to Deputy Alpha Wilco TT, 0 to Marcus James. Kate announces over the microphone, looking shocked. "Never underestimate your opponent." Avery calls down to the crowd, as the second whistle blows after a few seconds. Marcus waits this time, staying in his corner and watching Avery as she watched him. This time, Avery walks into the middle, before jumping up and grabbing onto the roof of the cage, looping her fingers onto some of the metal bars. She flips herself over, kicking Marcus in the neck as she goes. His face is taking a beating, and she isn't sure why she's targeting his face so much, maybe because she knows his image is the most important thing to him. "Where are these fighting skills your pack brags about?" Avery baits, hearing a wave of uneasiness run through the crowd. Nobody likes when their pack is mocked, and the teenagers from this one are no different. Looking at each other nervously, Marcus jumps up and grabs onto the ceiling too, his long frame making it easy for him. He aims a kick at her midriff, which she blocks quickly. While she blocks that kick, he projects himself at her like a missile, using his weight to knock her to the ground. "Bastard," she hisses as he kicks her in the side while she's on the ground. Grabbing one of his feet, she rolls and pulls him down, 2 before leaping off of the ground, and giving him a hard kick to the side also. Well, 1 became 4, but she stops after 6. Not wanting to be too unfair, Marcus struggles to get up, and Avery makes a note of this information. She quickly puts him into a chokehold, sitting down behind him as he hits and claws at her arms. She loosens her hold enough for him to be able to breathe a little easier, but she maintains her control on him. The whistle blows again, and Kate looks mildly baffled. The score remains 1-0. There is no clear winner of this round, she declares, waiting for the pair to separate before blowing the whistle again. Avery achieved what she wanted to. Marcus is now furious. She doesn't know if it's because HES being beaten in general, or if it's because it's a female beating him. This time, he walks up to her slowly, glaring at her. "So you're Ian Unfortunate," he sneers, punching her in the jaw on the same side he got her cheek, which she isn't happy about. By the way, thank goddess she remembered her makeup. Yep, she responds with the same animosity, giving him a roundhouse kick, which he blocks. She kicks him square in the chest, making him stumble back a few feet before he regains his balance and throws a cross punch at her face. "How does it feel being unwanted?" He smirks, leering at her. She uppercuts him again, twice, and then hits him with an aggressive right hook. "Don't talk about things you don't understand, kid," she growls, harnessing her anger into another brutal hit. She grabs him by the back of his neck, pulling his face down and hitting him in the middle of his face with her knee. A crack can be heard in the silent room, and he stumbles back, holding his nose, which is pumping blood. You bitch, he roars, running at her with blood pouring down his face, as he tackles her to the ground and starts raining down punches on her. A door slams open. What the hell is going on in here? A voice booms and Avery turns her head to see Beta Ryan. Marcus also looks, allowing Avery to jump at him and pin him down, this time holding him by his neck. "Give me a reason," she snarls, and the boy freezes under her grip, his eyes showing fear and terror. "Training," Avery growls, knowing the Beta can hear her. The whistle blows, and Kate shouts, "Does Ero to Deputy Alpha Wilco TT? Marcus James, will you submit?" Marcus hears this, and his eyes widen, quickly turning his head to show his neck. As soon as he is released, he tries to tackle Avery, but she just flings him into the chain walls, spitting blood out as she walks towards the door of the cage. The Beta is standing there in horror, waiting for her to get out. She jumps down, landing cleanly beside him, giving him a bloody smile. She cracks her jaw, forcing it back to where it should be. "Somebody mind link your pack, doctor." Marcus is not allowed back in my training sessions until he realizes what he has done. You do not attack because you're angry you lost. If the fight is over, it is done, she snarls, walking back to the rack of weapons. Beta Ryan follows her, totally aghast. "Deputy Alpha Wilco TT. He starts. "Did Alpha Lancaster say you could beat up the pups?" "He said I could train them." "You people don't train properly," which is very evident to me at this moment. She hisses in response. The crowd of pups hesitantly follow over to sit in front of where Avery is standing, looking at her with fearful respect instead of curiosity. Beta Ryan rubs his face and stands to the side, deciding that he should probably observe what's going to happen here. Never underestimate your opponent. Do not be a bully. Respect the rules. Avery shouts as she paces, her hands behind her back again. Observe them and then fight. If you know their patterns, even better. Don't be afraid to take a risk, like Marcus did when he decided to try my method of cage climbing. She adds, but also beyond defense. It is better to get out of a fight as a loser at alive than not coming out of it all because of your pride. At this statement, the entire hall is silent. Pair off. If you don't have a partner, you'll be working with me, she announces. Everyone quickly finds a partner. Bar Kate, the young girl who filled the referee role. She looks timid, but significantly like everybody else. She saw the fight up close and personal, so she saw that Avery restrained herself. Part 12. Go, Avery shouts, turning on some upbeat pop music. She walks along the lines of sparring teenagers, her eyes watching sharply for any mistakes. With Kate beside her, what should she have done there instead of punch? Avery murmurs to her, pointing at a pair of girls. Kick, and then get out of the arm-span area of the opponent. Kate suggests, and Avery nods in approval. Once they get to the end, they stop and turn to overlook the hall. Get to knives, Avery orders, then pauses. Actually, get for. Kate doesn't question it, quickly hurrying off to collect the 4 knives from the rack. She gets for hunting knives, long and light to carry. Once Kate comes back, Avery takes to knives and stares at her. Try to attack me. I won't harm you, but try to attack me, she says to the shy girl. And Kate takes a step back, shaking her head. If you're gonna be a tracker, your best defense is weaponry, Avery quickly adds. Kate hesitantly goes towards Avery with her knives and tries to stab at her, which Avery blocks with her own blade. Be confident in your movements, Avery announces across the hall. Kate tries again, this time getting closer to piercing Avery's skin. Good. Keep going. If you can't hurt me, tire me out, Avery says softly, watching the girl observe her movements. Before pivoting on her foot and slashing at her, she catches Avery on the arm, and much to her horror, blood spurts from the wound. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Kate gasps, dropping her knives and throwing her hands up. Avery looks at her with a small smile, holding her arm. Well done. You observed me, and when you saw a chance, you attacked. That is what you'll have to do, she beams, before turning to the rest of the hall and clearing her throat. Even over the music, everyone hears her, turning to pay attention, all except one pair, who quickly stop fighting when everyone stares at them. With mumbled apologies, the two join everyone else watching Avery and Kate, who here manage to injure their sparring partner. Avery asks, and 3 hands raise. Who didn't want to injure their sparring partner? Avery continues, and almost every hand raises immediately. You shouldn't spar with your friend. You're more likely to go easy on them, which means neither of you will be challenged to your full ability. Choose someone you don't speak to. And I mean that if you pick your friend, you will run laps of this hall until I do stop. She warns sternly, and everyone quickly finds a new partner. Kate here observed me, and when she saw an opening, she didn't hesitate. This is an example of what you should all be able to do, and I applaud Kate for having the guts to attack me, a deputy alpha, when most of you couldn't even fight each other. Avery scolds, before shooing Kate into the crowd of her peers, and, picking up the 4 hunting knives, turn around, walk 3 paces to the left, and find your new partner, Avery shouts, as she walks towards the rack of weapons to put the knives back. As the second round of sparring commences, Beta Ryan taps Avery on the shoulder gently, so as not to startle her and end up with a snapped neck or a slit throat. You have excellent leadership skills, he compliments, and she nods. I know. I'm an alpha in all but title, she responds before she walks up and down the aisles of the fighting pairs. Ryan walks with her, his eyes roving over some of the fighters. We're supposed to be grooming some of these kids to be warriors. He sounds miserable, but very few are up to standard. Avery watches him out of the side of her eye before she fixes a teenager's posture and corrects a punch for another. They need to be let experience fighting. They should be shown examples. That boy fighting me in the cage was an example. They need to practice and learn theory too, but they need to be able to put their theory into practice. Avery states, and Ryan raises an eyebrow. It's traditionally the Gamma who oversees training, especially for the youths. He had told us they were ready for trials in a few months. Ryan grumbles, catching a flying shoe and throwing it back to its owner. If they go to the trials, they would be crushed, and your pack would be shamed for sending them. Avery shrugs, her blunt tone catching the ears of Alpha Roman, who grits his teeth. What would you do to prepare them? He asks, appearing beside Beta Ryan, who looks particularly uncomfortable being between the 2 dominant creatures. Change their routine, schedule, and training. Avery responds, her face set like stone. I can't believe you let your warriors drop to this standard. Avery shoots at him, And she isn't lying, or being unnecessarily cruel. Every alpha she has worked with has teenagers training every day. As soon as they shift, the way these pups were falling around, it was as though they had been trained once a month. I have other responsibilities. Roman bites back, and Avery raises a brow. Responsibilities other than the protection of your pack, and the well-being of your future fighters. She snarls, drawing attention to them. Some of the teens look nervous, and all of them can feel the dominant energy rolling off of both alphas. Roman stares at her, growling under his breath. Sonia scratches at Avery, begging to be let out. This internal struggle causes her blue eyes to flash coal gray, her back tensing and getting ready to shift if needed. I am a peacekeeper, Roman rumbles. I do not fight. My pack keeps the peace with others. Avery isn't impressed by his attempt at explaining his poorly trained warriors. How are they supposed to be paraded into war zones if they can't even fend themselves against their peers? Avery hisses, getting closer to Roman, who stands his ground. Beta Ryan looks between the two, clearing his throat gently. Maybe you two should discuss this later, he suggests softly, well aware of the many listening young ears. The two alphas look around, both of them tightly wound and ready to spring at each other. Beta Ryan is extremely amused. Nobody can usually provoke his alpha like this. Roman is a peacekeeper for a reason, and that reason is that he never gets angry or riled up. Good idea, Ryan. Avery nods, realizing and feeling instantly bad that the children heard her demean their skills. She walks to the top of the room, noticing some of the children look a little downtrodden. So I think we should make this a daily thing while I'm here. She begins. All of you have improved in the last hour. Girl with blue hair, your defense is so much better than it was. Boy in the red shirt. Yes, you need to be more confident in your abilities, but you have a lot of potential. She continues this way until nearly every teenager has received a compliment on something. She walks up to Kate and gives her a pat on the back, before walking over to Marcus, who had managed to creep back into the room. He looks at her with plain disgust, but his disgust is mixed with fear now. Learn how to respect people, or you'll never achieve Chief Warrior, she hisses, slamming his mouth closed by his jaw. Work on your endurance, because your strikes are good, she adds grudgingly, strolling out of the main door. Part 13. She doesn't remember most of the walk up to her room, because she was doing her best to contain her temper. She wishes she hadn't given out about the kids. In front of the kids, but she can't go back and stop herself now. They all seemed to brighten up when she complimented all of them, which is a thing she likes to do in her training sessions. Kids don't achieve their potential if they get shouted at all the time with no positive reinforcement. Stripping off her workout gear, she remembers she left her sweatshirt in the gym. Cursing herself, she writes it down on a post. It notes she'll get it after her shower. Snatching a towel from the wardrobe and her shower products, she stomps into her bathroom, letting a screech of frustration out while the water heats up. She really couldn't believe how under-trained those kids were. Every pack does things differently, but she could beat the future Chief Warrior with minimal effort and mild bruising. Closing the bathroom door and locking it out of paranoia. Of course she steps into the scalding hot shower, letting her hair down and keeping it out of the water. Angrily washing her hair in colder water, she puts a toner and then shaves her legs, muttering curses to herself the entire time. She can't even enjoy the fresh scent of her hair products, or the fact her roots haven't grown in, because she's so agitated. Rinsing out her toner, she makes sure her hair isn't purple, before putting a mask in and sitting on the built-in bench in the shower. Putting her head against the wall, she sits there for a few minutes, trying to relax, but ultimately being unable to calm down. She found it odd how different Roman was on his territory, but he does have a reputation to uphold, she guesses. Rubbing her shoulder blade, a phantom pain runs through her as her fingertips dance over her brand. Rinsing the mask out and tying her hair into a towel, she rinses off quickly, before getting out and into the beckoning fluffy towel. The level of warmth from the towel she wraps around herself makes her feel a bit better. It's comforting and reminds her of being in hotels with her family on vacation. Unlocking her bathroom door, she peeks out of the gap into her bedroom. Chess, always paranoid on the journey from the bathroom to the bedroom. Yerk always gives out about it and says it's all of the serial killer documentaries Chess watched and listened to over the past few years while she does her work. She ignores him every time, quickly bounding from the bathroom over to her wardrobe. She looks at what she hung up already. The desire to get into pajamas is overwhelming, but it's almost dinner time, so she has to put on something presentable to meet the pack. Reluctantly slipping into an emerald silk slip dress, she adds an necklace before letting her hair down, staring at the tangle of blonde in the mirror. Avery grumbles as she roots in her suitcase for her blow dryer, desperately regretting washing her hair. Adding all of her products to her hair, she sorts out her makeup for dinner, and then quickly dries her mane, wrestling it into a loose over the shoulder braid when it refuses to cooperate. Hearing a bell being rung downstairs, she sighs, assuming that means it's dinner time if it isn't. They're going to be very confused about the formally attired she-wolf in their midst, descending the stairs after finding her way out of the maze with no issues this time. A smirk on her face as she passes the room where she heard Roman in a less than favorable position earlier. Walking to where she can hear a lot of chatter, she slides in one of the side doors. Her attempt to go unnoticed fails, as it seems like the whole pack turns and stares at her once one person saw her. Beta Ryan appears by her side, escorting her to the head table. "Hello, Deputy Alpha Wilco TT. Alpha Lancaster invited the whole pack to meet you, so this is the most full this hall will be," the man mutters to her, and she raises a brow, her lip curling up in irritation. "Avery, please. And all this because I called him out on something that should have been noticed months ago." She snorts quietly, shaking her head, and Chess led by the elbow up the 3 steps that led to the main table. Alpha Roman isn't present, but he seems to be the only person missing from the table. As Ryan pulls out a seat for her and she sits down, Avery, right on, coughs. "This is my mate Carolyn, and our daughter Michelle. Little Michelle is adorable." And Avery instantly beams at her, pulling faces at her across the table, and making the toddler giggle. "Hello, Carolyn. It's lovely to meet you," Avery says after a minute or two of amusing the child. Carolyn looks at her curiously before giving her a small smile. "Hello. You look stunning. I'd heard about your training session earlier from my younger brother. He said they all enjoyed being tested." Carolyn responds softly. Her voice is gentle as her appearance. "Oh, they didn't enjoy it when they were being tested. I can assure you of that." She laughs awkwardly, looking around desperately for a way out. Avery is much more comfortable talking to men, usually because they surround her in board meetings and conferences. She has female friends, but they're generally very girly and excitable. Hell, Jess godmother to 3 little girls who her friends popped out over the last 10 years. Jess usually the quiet female in other females' company. It's very disconcerting to have to be the one to carry a conversation. Her eyes land on Amelia, and she quickly turns her entire body to face Carolyn. "So, how old is your brilliant little girl?" She beams, deciding the possibility of being stuck in an awkward conversation is much safer than risking angering the former Luna of the pack Jess staying in. "Shelby for next month." Carolyn smiles, her eyes lighting up as she looks at her little girl. For a second, a very heart takes the chances of her having children, and she doesn't have a mate or negligible to none. She shakes it off, refusing to be a downer. She's absolutely gorgeous. Avery grins, and the little girl sticks her tongue out, her curls bouncing everywhere. "Do you have children with your mate?" Carolyn asks softly, her tone quiet and welcoming. "Unfortunately, I don't have a mate," Avery responds, her tone conveying her sadness. Carolyn doesn't say anything, just grasps Avery's hand and gently squeezes it. Before anything else is said, the main doors swing open, revealing Alpha Roman. He is wearing a full suit and looking extremely bothered. "Begin serving." He commands the pack members who stand around the outside of the hall, and they all vanish to what she assumes is the kitchen. He stomps his way up the stairs to his seat, where he sits down angrily. Beta Ryan and Gamma Ben stare at him in concern, and he suddenly stands back up again. Well, I remember. And so you all stop mind linking me about a trespass. Deputy Alpha Wilco will be staying with us for a week or two. She may volunteer some of her time to train the teenagers, as she did today. If anybody has any complaints about her training, please take it up with her. Thank you, he announces, sitting back down as a wave of excitement passes through the crowd. Avery catches the eye of some of the teenagers, and they smile at her, which surprises her, but doesn't. At the same time, she smiles and nods back before her dinner is placed in front of her, and she digs in. Part 14. Once the main course is finished, there's a short break between dinner and dessert. A number of mothers approach Avery, one or two concerned about her training tactics, another few asking her to keep an eye on their children. One even tells her her son's allergy, which confuses her with their training, not eating nuts. Avery is polite throughout all of the encounters, even with the one where an entitled mother says her son should get extra training. Excuse me, miss. Avery begins calmly. Your son is clearly embarrassed by you showing him up like this. I am giving up my personal time to train all of these children, and I owe you none of it. The mother tries to find something to scream about, but Avery sits in silence, staring at her. After 2 minutes of the lady staring at her, her mouth opening and closing like a fish, she walks back to her seat in silence. My chief warrior would like to book an hour of your time tomorrow to organize a schedule for the week you're here, if you wouldn't mind, Roman states stiffly, and Avery nods. Of course, we'd like to have your Gamma sit in on some of the meeting, since he is the organizer. I would also like to speak to you after dinner, if you wouldn't mind. Alpha Roman, Avery responds, forcing herself to keep her tone level and pleasant. The young girl serving Avery dessert twitches when she hears Roman's name, seeming shocked that Avery said it out loud. Avery watches the girl carefully, whispering a thank you to her before she scuttles away. She notices that only herself, Ryan, Carolyn, and young Michelle thank the servers for their work, which disgusts her. Manners aren't hard, and if a 3-year-old has a good grasp on them, so should the adults surrounding her. Eating her apple crumble with some aggression, she awaits a response from Roman about their meeting. That works for me. I have to go to the gym, so we'll have to have the conversation there, he mutters back, and Avery shrugs. She isn't thrilled that she'll have to be in that room twice in one day, but at least she can collect her sweatshirt. They'll see you at around 8. Then, Roman grumbles, walking out of the hall a few minutes later. People gradually begin to leave, and Michelle clambers onto Avery's lap, taking interest in this new stranger. Neither of her parents make any move to take the child back, so Avery puts her hand behind the child's back to support her. Hello, Michelle beams, putting her face close to Avery's, and squeezing the woman's cheeks. Hello, yourself. Avery chuckles, pulling a face at the child. You look like paper, the child announces, and Avery laughs, shaking her head. Excuse you, I have bronzer on. Avery responds in a teasing tone, and the child frowns at her, her eyebrows furrowed. What's bronzer? She questions, moving on to playing with the end of Avery's braid. It's makeup that makes your skin darker. Avery replies, scooping the last of her apple crumble into her mouth. Oh, the child simply nods. Bounce me. Avery looks at Carolyn, unsure of what the child means, but the other woman mimes lifting something up and swinging it. Avery raises a brow, standing up, and moving away from the table, before lifting Michelle up and throwing her a small distance into the air, catching her with ease. She does this 4 times, and Michelle ends up in hysterical laughter, which leads to Avery putting her down. You'll get a pain in your tummy if you keep getting thrown into the air. Little wolf. Avery smiles, patting the girl's head and standing back up. Michelle pouts for a minute, before Ryan scoops her up with a grin. "Bedtime for you." "Pup," he laughs, and Carol watches, amused, as her mate carries their child out of the room. "You might be roped into babysitting at some point this week." You're able to amuse her, which is more than poor Roman can do. Carol laughs, only to hear the sharp clearing of a throat. Amelia is sitting at the table still, glaring at Carol and Avery. The two women shoot each other secret smiles before hurrying out of the dining hall. Try not to laugh. As soon as they get out of earshot, they burst into giggles together before parting ways at the stairs. Once Avery gets to her room, her phone starts to ring, her father's name coming up. She answers without delay, closing her door and putting the phone on her bed on speaker while she changes. "Hello, dear," Richard says nervously. "Hey, Dad." Avery calls from the wardrobe where she has her pajamas hidden. "I'd like to apologize for my ridiculous actions." He begins gently. "I was stupid and entirely inconsiderate of your feelings." Avery raises a brow and rolls her eyes a little. It's okay. I understand why you did it, but you should have asked me. You always do stuff like that without telling me, and I won't put up with it anymore." She responds, slipping into a comfy set of plaid pajama bottoms and a tank top. "I know I do. Exactly like I did the alpha thing, too, and I realize it's wrong. Your mother is making me see the counselor to understand the gravity of what I have done, and I want to understand. I just want to know that you're okay," he pleads, his voice cracking. Avery raises a brow. "Good for Marie." Sonia snorts, making her presence known for the first time in a few hours. "I'm okay. Dad, thank you for calling. I'm still going to stay here for the week. I have everything I need." She shrugs, and she hears him gasping. "Oh, this was to try to convince you to come home. I swear. I just wanted to check on you. It has been years since we fought, and I didn't want to leave it like it was," he quickly adds, and Avery smiles slightly. "Okay, Dad. I need to go. I have a lot of stuff to do this evening." She smiles and furrows her brows. "What time is it there?" "It's just after midnight." He sighs, and Avery nods. There was a 6-hour time difference, so she was going to sleep well tonight, right? "Give my love to Mum and York, and tell them it'll ring in the morning," she says with a smile. And after her father says goodnight, they hang up. Avery walks to the desk in the corner of her room and looks out the window for a few minutes before sitting down and opening the file on top of her pile. Part 15. By the time she gets through some of her files and sends them on to York, 2 hours have flown by, and it's almost 8:30. With a start in slight horror, Avery jumps up, remembering she was supposed to meet Roman half an hour ago. Slipping her feet into trainers, she hurries down the stairs, only realizing when she's almost at the gym that she forgot to put on her sweatshirt to a pajama top. The tank top will have to do until she gets her sweatshirt. Knocking on the door of the gym, she quickly walks in, being greeted with the sound of fists hitting a punching bag with a significant amount of ferocity and anger. She raises a brow, skirting around to the cage to see if she can find her sweatshirt without being noticed. She wants to have a serious conversation, and that won't happen if this alpha is staring at her chest the entire time. A throat clears as she bends over to pick up her sweatshirt. "You're late, and can you give me that?" Roman calls across the room, making Avery look down at the gray bundle in her arms. She realizes that it is in fact not hers, and so she scuttles quickly over to where he is, throwing him the sweatshirt and releasing her hair from the braid in one fluid movement, shaking out her locks to hide her upper half. "I'm sorry for being late. I was working on some files from my brother, and I didn't realize the time." She sighs, genuinely apologetic. She hates being late to anything, and she's ordinarily early to everything. He simply nods, throwing his sweatshirt to where his water bottle is. "Are you up for some sparring?" he asks casually, and she stares at him like he has an extra head. "No, thanks. I worked out for 3 hours with the teenagers I need to speak to you about earlier. She responds quickly, not ready to admit her arms feel like lead. He makes an committal grunting noise, which annoys Avery a bit. I would like to apologize for giving criticism in front of your pack. I should have waited until we were in private, or in your office before I started being so rude. She starts, watching him like a hawk as he continues to punch the bag. She knows he can hear her clearly, so she rolls her eyes and continues. Apology accepted. He mutters, delivering a right hook to the bag and making it shake. That being said, we need to talk about your teenagers. You cannot send them to the trials unless they are given serious training and attention over the next few months. Avery quickly adds, walking towards the cage to find her sweatshirt. Roman follows her silently, his feet making no noise as he lands and walks behind her. As soon as she turns back around, he traps her against the cage, one of his arms going around her waist, and the other holding onto the cage. She stares at him in confusion, making a half-hearted attempt to push him away. What are you doing? She clears her throat. He.s. so close to her that she can feel his warm breath on her forehead. I didn't think you were stupid. Wakotiti. He breath ILY whispers, drawing her closer to his shirtless form, and pressing his lips to hers. Her eyes widen, and she presses her hands onto his chest, pushing him off her. You're so sweaty. And what the hell? Think about your mate. She snarls, shooting across the room to put distance between them. Roman watches her like a predator, watching as her cheeks turn red and her eyes flash black. She's been dead for 9 years, he says in a low voice, which she can hear from across the room. She's still your mate. She stutters out, completely confused. You saw me earlier, and you heard that girl. Clearly, I'm over her. He smirks, and Avery stares at him, her eyes popping out of her head. I am here to have a proper conversation about your teenagers, but now I have another thing to talk about your irritable attitude. She gasps. She doesn't kiss men with mates. She kisses unmated males aplenty, but she doesn't mess with another woman's male. Don't you like my terrible attitude? He asks, his smirk widening. What has gotten into you? She grumbles, planting herself on one of the benches. He walks over to sit beside her, and she puts her legs up beside her. You sit over there, she instructs, and she doesn't like it. What is with your mood swings? It's ridiculous. How are you like this with me, and then a complete asshole with everyone else? She asks, and his face tightens, his posture straightening. Can I not enjoy myself? He asks innocently, widening his eyes a little. Not at my expense. She grits out, standing up and beginning to walk out. He gently grabs her arm, in a way she could continue walking and he wouldn't have any sort of hold on her. She turns around to face him, and he looks dramatically more apologetic than he did a minute ago. I'm sorry. I thought you were interested too. We can go to my office if you want a more formal setting. He sighs, running a hand through his short hair. Here is fine. Just please focus. I don't care what you do in your spare time, but I have a real concern, she says sharply, returning to her bench. What was the problem? He asks, and she sighs, which turns into a low growl. They are completely underprepared. They can't spar from what I saw. And if they can't do hand, two-hand, I highly doubt they're ready to practice with weapons. I had them spar for about an hour and a half, and I had them run reels for another hour. I sparred with one girl in particular, Kate. I think she wants to be a tracker and she was good with knives. She lisped, running her fingers through her hair. That would be Kate Spencer. Ben said they were practicing every day. Roman says in confusion, and Avery raises a brow. If that's true, then your gam needs to be reviewed on his fighting training. She retorts, and quickly apologizes for her tone. I'll witness your session tomorrow, if that's okay with you. Well, Kotiti, he says grimly, clenching his jaw, any teasing or sultry expression gone from his face, replaced with one of business and irritation. Is the boy I injured all right? Avery asks quietly, looking up at Roman, who stood up. Marcus. Yes, fine. His pride is a bit bruised and battered, but he'll be here tomorrow. No doubt. He wants the training he obviously has been getting. Roman sighs, heading towards the door. Avery gets up and takes another look around, spotting Roman's hoodie sitting on the ground. Alpha Row, she calls after him, and he puts a hand up, cutting her off. Keep it. And it's Roman to you. Part 16. Avery finds herself back at her room with no recollection of walking back to it. Sonia is baffled, sitting silently while Avery's mind is blank. It was a good kiss for me not kissing back, she mutters out loud, laying on her bed. She puts Roman's sweatshirt down beside her. Not sure what to do with it, she took it because she didn't know where to put it if she didn't. Sniffing at the hoodie. She still can't find a scent on it. It's as though Roman uses a scent blocker. Laying there for a few minutes, Sonia starts getting restless, forcing Avery to get up. Can we go for a run? Sonia pleads. Avery silently consents, walking down the stairs to the main door. Hey, Avery, a voice shouts, and she spins around to see Carol floating out of a room she hasn't been in yet, a glass of wine in her hand. Do you want to come drink with us? Please say yes. The coffee-skinned woman beams, bouncing over to her with surprisingly steady feet. I was gonna go on a run, Avery starts, but Carol cuts her off, grabbing her hand and tugging her into the room she came out of. Inside are a group of women, all holding glasses or bottles with big smiles. Hello, they all echo eagerly, moving to make space for Avery where Carol must have been. Hello, hello. Avery responds weakly, her mind still fuzzy from earlier. Suo, we hear you're Deputy Alpha. What's that like? One lady, with pin, straight black hair down to her hips, asks, leaning forward eagerly, almost tipping her bottle of beer. The lady beside her pulls her back into her seat, rolling her eyes. Sorry about her. Just about 4 shots and 3 bottles ahead of the rest of us. Can we get you anything to drink? A redhead head smiles, her dimples prominent on her childlike face, almost making Avery want to say WW. Just some water or soda if you have it. Avery smiles politely. You don't drink. Carol asks quietly, and Avery shakes her head slowly. I do sometimes, but not while training. She responds softly, receiving her glass of Sprite with a smile and a thank you. They all sit in silence for a moment, all of them staring at Avery with massive smiles on their faces. So what happened with the Alpha? Carol finally asks, with a mischievous smile on her face. Avery blanks, her mouth opening and closing with no words coming out. What do you know? She finally asks, deciding it's probably safer to figure out what Roman let slip. Probably to his beta. Well, we know you two had a massive argument. One woman smirks. My son was there. He heard it. So did you two have scorching, sweaty makeup sex. Avery stares at her in horror, her eyes bulging. We know you two talked in the gym. The slightly drunk lady with black hair beams. But I don't know after that. I was there. I was. One lady mutters, and Avery spins around to stare at her. She groans, and the lady freezes in alarm. The room is full of excitement, but also nervous tension. Carol quickly clears her throat, sitting up straight and raising her glass. To our weekly Lady Thursday, and all of you lovely ladies. May we always welcome new members, and may we drink so much wine that our mates have to come to find us. She laughs, and everyone raises their glass. Avery weakly doing the same. So, Deputy, tell us about yourself. One lady starts curiously, her eyes wide and probing. Call me Avery, please. Avery Wilco-TT, Deputy Alpha of Rapid Rock. 28, 8, and am not a natural blonde, she declares, drawing a giggle at her statement of fake hair coloring. My husband is training in your pack, what's it like? One asks, looking at her inquiringly. Very different from here. It's warm here, but it's much colder and damp over in my pack. We don't have a beach anywhere near us, so they won't be working on their tans. Avery responds ruefully, rubbing her own ghostly arms. So did you have sex? The same woman from earlier blurts out, sitting on the edge of her chair. She won't stop asking until you answer. Carolyn mutters, her tone irritated no. And I'm not lying. You'd be able to smell it on me. Avery shrugs, and Carolyn's eyes twitch a little, as does her nose. Well, I'll wish, well, you two did something. I can smell his scent on you. One smirks, and Avery's cheeks turn red. Oh my God. What did you guys do? One younger woman shrieks and Avery feels awkward. She doesn't know these women, except Carolyn, but she feels connected with them. We kissed. Well, he kissed me, and I pushed him off because I was trying to speak. She grumbles, running a hand through her wavy hair. Her response splits the reactions. Carolyn's face, and a few others, twist into disapproval and irritation. Others look overjoyed. One woman asks with scorn, and Avery widens her eyes. She didn't want his pack to turn on him, it was only a kiss. He apologized. He had the wrong idea. She quickly explains, and Carolyn's face still isn't back to normal. Her eyes flash black, and it's obvious she's mind-blinking her mate to fill him in. Shit. Sonia hisses. If Ryan knows, Roman will know you told someone. Avery suddenly feels slightly uncomfortable. She wasn't sure if this was supposed to be some secret, illicit affair. It probably was, because he wasn't very polite to her in front of his pack or his family. The women look remarkably irritated, and Avery notices this. We're not angry at you, dear, a white-haired middle-aged woman quickly assures her, shaking her head. We just thought that sort of outdated crap was gone from this pack. Most of the women nod along in agreement, rolling their eyes. Oh well. He apologized. Avery repeats awkwardly, rubbing her neck. I'd kiss him back if I hadn't been talking. Her eyes widen as she admits that, and Sonia is howling with laughter in her head. She hadn't admitted it to herself yet, and she had managed to just tell the members of the pack that would inform everybody else of her misdemeanor. The women are all aflutter, bouncing and beaming at each other. Could we keep this a secret? Though, I don't want him to think I broke his privacy. She cringes, and the white-haired lady walks over and puts an arm over her shoulder. He lost his right to privacy and secrecy the moment he kissed you. She smirks, patting the younger girl on the arm. Part 17 breakfast is silent the next morning. The hall is emptier than the previous night. Only residents or workers of the house eating and chatting. All of the women are smiling and smirking, nudging each other and looking up at Avery, who sits at the front of the room with scarlet-colored cheeks. She looks around nervously, her eyes landing on Roman, before they quickly flit away, acting like she never looked in his direction. Carolyn nudges her with a smirk, winking at her in between shoveling oatmeal into Michaela's mouth. Avery scowls at her, feeling the nervous tension around her. She doesn't care who knows about their kiss, she isn't shy about stuff like that. She doesn't give a second glance to rumors and mutters in the corners of the halls. Her fear stems from his reaction, because Goddess knows in this pack who would tell him, and he might think she's been telling everybody. And she has. She told the ladies last night. And that's it. Yeah, so everybody knows. Sonia snorts, rolling her eyes. Avery ignores her, scowling, as she makes a mental note to let Sonia out for a run later. She gets catty when she feels caged, and she doesn't need to shift randomly or while just reining the kids. Actually, she muses. Maybe she could bring the teenagers for a run today. That sounds a lot easier and much more relaxing for her than fighting or sparring. Nodding to herself, she catches Roman's eye accidentally. He stares at her, his eyes shifting from black to their usual dark but distinguishable color. Avery quickly looks down, turning to Carolyn. What do you think of me taking the teenagers for a run today? In their wolf forms, she asks in between forcing cereal into her mouth. Carolyn gives her a disgusted look, staring at her full mouth. You might have more manners in your wolf form. She grumbles. I think it's a good idea. They don't really have regulated shifting. They just do it when they want. So a lot of them are at different levels. Avery nods thoughtfully, making a mental note to ask Carolyn the important stuff instead of anyone else. Just technically the surrogate Luna. So any women with issues about anything would go to her over anybody else. Yeah, I might do that then. Where is the worst place to work out on this territory? She questions, leaning forward to wipe a glob of oatmeal off Michaela's cheek absently. By the swamps. Carolyn nods, handing Avery the spoon for Michaela's breakfast with amusement. Quickly eating her own, Avery makes aeroplane noises as she feeds the little girl, who looks delighted with the unexpected attention. Roman walks behind the two women, who don't seem to have noticed most of the hall has cleared out, with people quickly hurrying off to their jobs or school. He coughs softly, and Carolyn glances up at him, before doing a double, taken widening her eyes a little, nudging Avery, who still has her full attention focused on the young girl she is feeding. Good morning, Alpha. Avery nods, shifting her jaw from one side to the other as she makes faces at Michelle to get her to eat the last spoonful of oatmeal in the bowl. Roman's jaw twitches when she says Alpha, so he obviously hadn't forgotten about his instruction like she had tried to. I heard you want to train the pups over by the swamp. He starts hesitantly. If you want to do that, I'll be coming with you. They're a big group, and the area is vast. It's easy to lose someone in there. That works fine for me. She shrugs. When do they finish school? Roman looks surprised at first, but quickly lowers his brows and hardens his facial expression. Around 3. I believe. He nods, and Carolyn coughs too. Tell them I want them to meet at the swamp area for 3. Then, Avery sighs, letting Michelle climb onto her lap. You look good with children. Roman smirks, walking away. What the fuck did he just say? Avery growls, and Michelle giggles. You look good with children. She parrots, lisping a little bit on the final word. Carolyn has to smother her laughter, lifting her daughter away from Avery and putting her onto her hip. What are your plans for the day? She asks the irritated blonde, who sighs. I suppose some pack work. I might go for a run myself now before I do the training. I don't really know yet. She shrugs. What time is lunch at? 1, and it's usually a pretty quiet affair. It'll be here, but we'll probably be the only 2 at this table. Most of the others take their lunch in their office. Carolyn nods, taking Michaela's fingers out of her mouth. That's perfect. I'll see you later. Avery smiles at the woman who Shess befriended, wandering off to her room. Once she gets there, she spends a little time on her phone, online shopping until she realizes she doesn't know the address of this pack house. She sighs, giving up on that endeavor, deciding to go to her desk and get some work done. The paperwork is monotonous and repetitive, and she spends 10 minutes trying to decipher 3 lines of York's handwriting before she gives up and phones him. Hey sis. He laughs into the phone, typing away on his computer. What the fuck did you waffle about in your notes about the rogues on the eastern border? She sighs, not in the humor for his eternal bubble in S. Send me a picture of it. I don't remember. He responds, sounding confused. How's Elful Lancaster? York asks while he gazes at the picture Avery just sent over. HES early and annoying. She responds, gritting her teeth a little. He kiss you. York smirks, and Avery lets out an outraged gasp. How did you know? She groans, rubbing her face. I didn't. It was just a guess. But now I know. He chuckles, and he can hear her grumbling away to herself. Well. You keep it zipped. His mate is apparently dead. She begins, and York cuts her off. There's no way Shess dead. We would have heard about it. He grumbles. And Avery nods enthusiastically, even though he can't see her. That's what I said, she exclaims, sitting up properly in her seat. So I wonder what the otherworldly alpha Lancaster is hiding. You'll see what I can find out about the mate, because that isn't sitting well with me, York states, sounding like the alpha he is. Thank you. I'm gonna ask around here, but I'm a little hesitant as someone could tell him I asked. She sighs, and York snorts. Well, wit. Then you can tell him I asked why he kissed you. You're my deputy, and you're there for business, not a holiday. He rolls his eyes, hiding his happiness. Marie, who's sitting in the room with him, shares a look with her son, both of their faces lighting up with excitement for their daughter and sister. God, you're all so dramatic. Avery grumbles. I have to go. I have a lot to do before I go train the teenagers. Train the teenagers? York exclaims curiously, raising his eyebrows. Yeah, they trust me to do that here. The teenagers actually asked me to themselves, Avery states smugly, and York looks worriedly at his mother.